Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the Claverings by Anthony Trollope. We are reading this book. I am reading it out loud to you, and I thought I would go on with that today. I am mighty distracted. I am mighty subdued, so you'll be noticing that. But I did want to see you. I did want to talk to you today, and I love reading to you. So I thought we'd continue with this, and probably it would make me feel better. And our story has a moving part in it. Young Harry Clavering has confessed to his prospective bride's sister-in-law that he has also proposed marriage to another woman. That Lady Ongar and he are not just friends. And Cecilia Burton, that's the name of the woman he confesses to, she is astounded and for a moment angry, but then she begs him to reconsider. She begs him to think about all the good things that he has in Florence Burton. And he promises that he will explain his entire situation to her in a letter that he will go home and write in the next 2 days. And he writes the letter right away, but it is the classic non-apology apology. It doesn't explain anything. It doesn't lay out any course of action. Instead, it defers that action. Harry says, well, I will give you a definitive answer on what I'm going to do after I talk to Lady Ongar. But there is another person involved, and that is Florence Burton, who is scheduled to come up to town. And in this chapter, this is chapter 32, Florence Burton packs up a packet. Florence arrives and very quickly learns the lay of the land regarding Harry Clavering, her intended, whom she hasn't heard from in quite some time. So she knows something's wrong. Though nobody had expressed to Florence at Stratton any fear of Harry Clavering's perfidy, that young lady was not altogether easy in her mind. Weeks and weeks had passed, and she had not heard from him. Her mother was manifestly uneasy, and had announced some days before Florence's departure her surprise and annoyance in not having heard from her eldest son. When Florence inquired as to the subject of the expected letter, her mother put the question aside, saying with a little assumed irritability that of course she liked to get an answer to her letters when she took the trouble to write them. She doesn't want to confess to Florence what they're writing about. They're writing about Florence. They're writing about Harry Clavering. And when the day for Florence's journey drew nigh, the old lady became more and more uneasy, showing plainly that she wished her daughter was not going to London. But Florence, as she was quite determined to go, said nothing to all of this. Her father was uneasy, and neither of them had for some days named her lover in her hearing. She knew that there was something wrong, and felt that it was better that she should go to London and learn the truth. No female heart was ever less prone to suspicion than the heart of Florence Burton. Among those with whom she had been most intimate, nothing had occurred to teach her that men could be false, or women either. When she had heard from Harry Clavering the story of Julia Brabazon, that is, who is now Lady Ongar, she had not, making much accusation against the sinner in the speech, put Julia down in the books of her mind as a bold, bad woman who could forget her sex and sell her beauty and her womanhood for money. There might be such women here or there, and such men. There were murderers in the world, but the bulk of mankind is not made subject to murderers. Florence had never considered the possibility that she herself could become liable to such a misfortune. And then, when the day came that she was engaged, her confidence in the man chosen by her was unlimited. Such love as hers rarely suspects. He with whom she had to do was Harry Clavering, and therefore she could not be deceived. Moreover, she was supported by a self-respect and a self-confidence which did not at first allow her to dream that a man who had once loved her would ever wish to leave her. It was to her as though a sacrament as holy as that of the Church had passed between them, and she could not easily bring herself to think that that sacrament had been as nothing to Harry Clavering. But nevertheless, there was something wrong, and when she left her father's house at Stratton, she was well aware that she must prepare herself for tidings that might be evil. She could bear anything, she thought, without disgracing herself, but there were tidings which might send her back to Stratton a broken woman, fit perhaps to comfort the declining years of her father and mother, but fit for nothing else. It must be a tense journey, knowing how much is on the line. Her mother watched her closely as she sat at her breakfast that morning, but much could not be gained by watching Florence Burton when Florence wished to conceal her thoughts. Many messages were sent to Theodore, to Cecilia, and to the children, messages to others of the Burton clan who were in town, but not a word was said of Harry Clavering. The very absence of his name was enough to make them all wretched, but Florence bore it as the Spartan boy bore the fox beneath his tunic. That's an anecdote that will be better known to Trollope's Victorian readers than it is to you. Mrs. Burton could hardly keep herself from a burst of indignation, but she had been strongly warned by her husband and restrained herself till Florence was gone. "If he is playing her false," she said as soon as she was alone with her husband, "he shall suffer for it, though I have to tear his face with my own fingers." "Oh, nonsense, my dear, nonsense." "It is not nonsense, Mr. Burton. A gentleman, indeed. He is to be allowed to be dishonest to my girl because he is a gentleman? I wish there was no such thing as gentlemen. So I do. Perhaps there would be more honest men then." It was unendurable to her that a girl of hers should be so treated. Immediately on the arrival of the train at the London platform, Florence espied Cecilia, and in a minute was in her arms. There was a special tenderness in her sister-in-law's caress, which at once told Florence that her fears had not been without cause. Who has not felt the evil tidings conveyed by the exaggerated tenderness of a special kiss? But while on the platform and among the porters, she said nothing of herself. She asked after Theodore, and heard of the railway confederacy with a shew of delight. "He'd like to make a line from Hyde Park Corner to the Tower of London," said Florence with a smile. Then she asked after the children, and especially for the baby, but as yet she spoke no word of Harry Clavering. The trunk and the bags were at last found, and the two ladies were packed into a cab and had started. Cecilia, when they were seated, got hold of Florence's hand and pressed it warmly. "Dearest," she said, "I am so glad to have you with us once again." "And now," said Florence, speaking with a calmness that was almost unnatural, "tell me all the truth." All the truth. What a demand it was. And yet Cecilia had expected that none the less would be made of her. Of course Florence must have known that there was something wrong. Of course she would ask as to her lover immediately upon her arrival. "And now tell me all the truth." "Oh, Florence." "The truth, then, is very bad?" said Florence gently. "Tell me first of all whether you have seen him. Is he ill?" He was with us on Friday. He is not ill." "Thank God for that. Has anything happened to him? Has he lost money?" "No, I have heard nothing about money." "Then he is tired of me. Tell me at once. You know me so well. You know I can bear it. Don't treat me as though I were a coward." "No, it is not that. It is not that he is tired of you. If you have heard him speak of you on Friday, that you were the noblest, purest, dearest, best of women." This was imprudent on her part, but what loving woman could at such a moment have endured to be prudent? "Then what is it?" asked Florence, almost sternly. "Look here, Cecilia, if it be anything touching himself or his own character, I will put up with it, in spite of anything my brother may say. Though he had been a murderer, if that were possible, I would not leave him. I will never leave him unless he leaves me. Where is he now, at this moment?" "He is in town." Mrs. Burton had not received Harry's note telling her of his journey to Clavering before she had left home. Now, at this moment, it was waiting for her at Onslow Crescent. He has left town. He's gone home. He's been abruptly summoned, which we'll find out next chapter why. "And am I to see him? Cecilia, why cannot you tell me what it is? In such a case, I should tell you everything, at once, because I know that you are no coward. Why cannot you do that to me?" "You have heard of Lady Ongar?" "Heard of her? Yes. She treated Harry very badly before her marriage. She has come back to London, a widow." "I know she has, and Harry has gone back to her. Is that it? Do you mean to tell me that Harry and Lady Ongar are to be married?" "No, I cannot say that. I hope it is not so. Indeed, I do not think it." "Then what have I to fear? Does she object to his marrying me? What is she to do between us?" "She wishes that Harry should come back to her, and Harry has been unsteady. He has been with her often, and he has been very weak. It may all be all right yet, Flo. It may indeed, if you can forgive his weakness." Something of the truth had now come home to Florence, and she sat thinking of it long before she spoke again. This widow, she knew, was very wealthy, and Harry had loved her before he had come to Stratton. Harry's first love had come back free to wed again, and able to make the fortune of the man she might love and marry. because she's extremely wealthy. What had Florence to give any man that could be weighed against this? Lady Ongar was very rich. Florence had already heard all this from Harry, was very rich, was clever, and was beautiful, and moreover she had been Harry's first love. Was it reasonable that she, with her little claims, her puny attractions, should stand in Harry's way when such a prize as that came across him? And as far as his weakness, might it not be strength rather than weakness? The strength of an old love which he could not quell, now that the woman was free to take him? For herself, had she not known that she had only come second? As she thought of him with his noble bride and that bride's great fortune, and of her own insignificance, her low birth, her doubtful prettiness that had ever been doubtful to herself, of her few advantages, she told herself that she had no right to stand upon her claims. "I wish I had known it sooner," she said, in a voice so soft that Cecilia strained her ears to catch the words. "I wish I had known it sooner. I would not have come up to be in his way." "But you will be in no one's way, Flo, unless it be in hers." "And I will not be in hers," said Florence, speaking somewhat louder and raising her head in pride as she spoke. "I will be in neither his nor hers. I think I will go back at once." Cecilia caught upon this ventured to look round at her and saw that she was very pale, but that her eyes were dry and her lips pressed close together. It had not occurred to Mrs. Burton that her sister-in-law would take it in this way, that she would express herself as being willing to give way, and that she would at once surrender her lover to her rival. The married woman, who was already happy with a husband, having enlisted all her sympathies on the side of marriage between Florence and Harry Clavering, could by no means bring herself to agree to this view. No one liked success better than Cecilia Burton, and her success would consist in rescuing Harry from Lady Ongar and securing him for Florence. In fighting this battle, she had found that she would have against her Lady Ongar, of course, and then her husband, and Harry himself too, as she feared, and now she must reckon Florence also among her opponents. But she could not endure the idea of failing in such a course. "Oh, Florence, I think you are so wrong. You would feel as I do if you were in my place." "But people cannot always judge best when they feel the most. What should you think of his? What you should think of is his unhappiness, of his happiness." "So I do, and of his future career." "Career? I hate to hear of careers. Men do want careers, or should not. Men do not want careers, or should not want them. Could it be good for him to want a woman who has been false, who has done as she has, simply because she had made herself rich by her wickedness? Do you believe so much in riches yourself?" "If he loves her best, I will not blame him," said Florence. "He knew her before he had seen me. He's quite honest, and told me all the story. If it's not his fault if he still likes her the best." When they reached Onslow Crescent, the first half hour was spent with the children, of whom Florence could not but observe that even from their mouths the name of Harry Clavering was banished. But she played with Sissy and Sophie, giving them their little presents from Stratton, and sat with the baby in her lap, kissing his pink feet and making little soft noises for his behoof, sweetly, as she might have done if no terrible crisis in her own life had now come upon her. Not a tear had yet moistened her eyes, and Cecilia was partly aware that Florence weeping would have done in secret. "Come up with me to my own room. I have something to show you," she said, as the nurse took the baby at last, and Sissy and Sophie were at the same time sent away to their brother. "As I came in, I got a note from Harry, but before you see it, I must show you the letter which he wrote to me on Friday. He has gone down to Clavering on some business for one day." Mrs. Burton, in her heart, could hardly acquit him of having run out of town at the moment to avoid the arrival of Florence. Certainly what it looks like. We know it's not true, but it looks like that. They went upstairs, and the note was, in fact, read before the letter. "I hope there's nothing wrong at the parsonage," said Florence. "You see, he says he will be back after one day. Perhaps he's gone to tell them of this change in his prospects." "No, dear, no. You do not understand his feelings. Read his letter, and you will know more. If there is to be a change, he is at any rate too much ashamed of it to speak of it. He doesn't wish it himself. It is simply this, that she has thrown herself in his way, and he does not know how to avoid her." Then Florence read the letter very slowly, going over most of the sentences more than once, and struggling to learn from them what were really the wishes of the writer. When she came to Harry's exculpation of Lady Ongar, she believed it thoroughly, and said so, meeting, however, a direct contradiction on that point from her sister-in-law. When she had finished it, she folded it up and gave it back. "Sissy," she said, "I know that I ought to go back. I do not want to see him, and I am glad he has gone away." "But you do not mean to give him up?" Yes, dearest. But you said you would never leave him unless he left you. But he has left me. No, Florence, not so. Do you not see what he says, that he knows you are the only woman who can make him happy? He has not said that. If he had said it, it would make no matter. He understands how it is. He says that I could not make him happy now, even if he came to me, and I cannot. How could I? What? Wish to marry a man who does not love me, who loves another, when I know that I am regarded simply as a barrier between them? When by doing so I should mar his fortunes? Sissy, dear, when you think of it, you will not wish it. Mar his fortunes? It would make them. I do wish it, and he wishes it too. I tell you that if I had him here, I had him here, and I know it. Why should you be sacrificed? What is the meaning of self-denial if no one can bear to suffer? But he will suffer too, and for all his caprices. You cannot really think that her money would do him any good. Who would ever speak to him again, or even see him? Very true. What would the world say of him? Why, his own father and mother and sisters would disown him, if they are such as you say they are. Florence would not argue it further, but went to her room, and remained there alone till Cecilia came to tell her that her brother had returned. What weeping there may have been, there need not be told. Indeed, as I think, there was not much, for Florence was a girl whose education had not brought her into the way of hysterical sensations. The Burtons were an attractive, energetic people who sympathized with each other in labor and success, and endurance also, but who had little sympathy to express for the weaknesses of grief. When her children had stumbled in their play, bruising their little noses and barking their little shins, Mrs. Burton, the elder, had been wont to bid them rise, asking them what their legs were for, as if they could not stand. So they had dried their own little eyes with their own little fists, and had learned to understand that the rubs of the world were to be borne in silence. The rub that had come to Florence was of grave import, and had gone deeper than the outward skin, but still the old lesson had its effects. Florence rose from the bed which she was lying, and prepared to come down. "Do not commit yourself to him as to anything," said Cecilia. "I understand what that means," Florence answered. "He thinks as I do. But never mind, he will not say much, and I shall say less. It is bad to talk of this to any man, even to a brother." Burton also received his sister with that exceptional affection which declares pity for some overwhelming misfortune. He kissed her lips, which was rare for him, for he would generally but just touch her forehead as he put his hand behind his waist and partly embraced her. "Did Sissy manage to find you at the station?" "Yes, easily." "Theodore thinks that a woman is no good for any such purpose as that," said Cecilia. "It is a wonder to him, no doubt, that we are not now wandering about London in search of each other, and of him." "I think she would have got home quicker if I had been there," said Burton. "We were in a cab in 1 minute, weren't we, Florence? The difference would have been that you would have given a porter a sixpence, and I gave him a shilling, having bespoken him before." "And Theodore's time was worth the sixpence, I suppose," said Florence. "That depends," said Cecilia. "How did the synod go?" "That's his business meeting." "The synod made an ass of itself, as synods always do. It is necessary to get a lot of men together for the show of the thing, otherwise the world will not believe. That is the meaning of committees. The real work must always be done by 1 or 2 men. Come, I'll go and get ready for dinner." The subject, the one real subject, had been altogether avoided at this first meeting with the man of the house, and the evening passed without any allusion to it. Much was made of the children, and much was said of the old people at home, but still there was a consciousness over them all that the one matter of importance was being kept in the background. They were all thinking of Harry Clavering, but no one mentioned his name. They all knew that they were unhappy and heavy-hearted through his fault, but no one blamed him. He had been received in that house with open arms, and had warmed in their bosom and had stung them. But though they were all smarting from the sting, they uttered no complaint. Burton had made up his mind that it would be better to pass over the matter thus in silence, and say nothing further of Harry Clavering. A misfortune had come upon them. They must bear it, and must go on as before. Harry had been admitted into the London office on the footing of a paid clerk, on the same footing, indeed, as Burton himself, though with a much smaller salary and inferior work. This position had been accorded to him, of course, through the Burton interest, and it was understood that if he chose to make himself useful, he could rise in the business as Theodore had risen. But he could only do so as one of the Burtons. For the last 3 months he had declined to take his salary, alleging that private affairs had kept him away from the office. It was to the hands of Theodore Burton himself that such matters came from management, and therefore had been no necessity for further explanation. Harry Clavering would, of course, leave the house, and there would be an end of him in the records of the Burton family. He would have come and made his mark, a terrible mark, and would have passed on. Those whom he had bruised by his cruelty and knocked over by his treachery must get to their feet again as best they could, and say as little as might about their fall. There are knaves in this world, and no one can suppose that he has a special right to be exempted from their knavery because he himself is honest. It is on the honest that the knaves prey. That was Burton's theory in this matter. He would learn from Cecilia how Florence was bearing herself, but to Florence herself he would say little or nothing if she bore with patience and dignity, as he believed she would, the calamity which had befallen her. But he must write to his mother. The old people at Stratton must not be left in the dark as to what was going on. He must write to his mother unless he could learn from his wife that Florence had communicated to them at home the fact of Harry's iniquity. But he made no such question as this on his first night, and on the following morning he went off, having simply been told that Florence had seen Harry's letter, and she knew all, and that she was carrying herself like an angel. "Not like an angel that hopes," said Theodore. "Let her alone for a day or two," said Cecilia. "Of course she must have a few days to think of it. I need hardly tell you that you will never have to be ashamed of your sister." The Tuesday and Wednesday passed by, and though Cecilia and Florence were together discussed the matter, no change was made in the wishes or thoughts of either one of them. Harry is back in town by now. Florence, now that she was in town, had consented to remain till after Harry should return, on the understanding that she should not be called upon to see him. He was to be told that she forgave him altogether, that his troth was returned to him, and that he was free, but that in such circumstances a meeting between them could be of no avail. And then a little packet was made up, which must be given to him. How was it that Florence had brought with her all the presents and all his letters? But there were in her box upstairs, and sitting by herself, there they were in her box upstairs, and sitting by herself with weary fingers she packed them, and left them packed under lock and key, addressing by herself to Harry Clavering, Esquire. Oh, the misery of packing such a packet! The feeling with which a woman does it is never encountered by a man. That isn't true, but still. He chucks things together in wrath. Locks of hair, the letters in pretty Italian hand that have taken so much happy care in writing, the jeweled shirt studs which were first put in by the fingers that gave them. They are thrown together and given to some other woman to deliver. But the girl lingers over her torture. She reads the letters again. She thinks of the moments of bliss which each little toy has given. She is loath to part with everything. She would fain keep some one thing, the smallest of them. She doubts, till a feeling of maidenly reserve constrains her at last, and the coveted trifle, with careful, painstaking fingers, is put in with the rest, and the parcel is made complete, and the address is written with precision. "Of course I cannot see him," said Florence. "You will hand him what I have sent him. You must ask him if he has kept any of my letters to return them." She said nothing of the shirt studs, but he would understand that. As for the lock of hair, doubtless it had been burned. Cecilia had but little in answer to this. She would not as yet look upon the matter as Florence looked at it, and as Theodore did also. Harry was to be back in town on Thursday morning. He could not, probably, be seen or heard on that day because of his visit to Lady Ongar. It was absolutely necessary that he should see Lady Ongar before he came to Onslow Terrace, with possibility of becoming once more the old Harry Clavering whom they were all to love. I think Theodore Burton is right. That Harry Clavering cannot come back. But Mrs. Burton could by no means give up all hope. It was useless to say anything to Florence, but she still hoped that good might come. And then, as she thought of it all, a project came into her head. Alas and alas, was she not too late with her project? Why had she not thought of it on Tuesday or early on Wednesday, when it might possibly have been executed? But it was a project that she might have kept secret from her husband, of which he would by no means have approved. And as she remembered this, she told herself that perhaps it was as well that things should take their own course without such interference as she contemplated. Can we guess what the project is? Can we guess what thing she thinks she can do? On the Thursday morning, there came a letter to her in a strange hand. It was from Clavering, from Harry's mother. Mrs. Clavering wrote, as she said, at her son's request, to say that he was confined to his bed and could not be in London as soon as expected. Mrs. Burton was not supposed to suppose that he was really ill, and none of the family were to be frightened. From this, Mrs. Burton learned that Mrs. Clavering knew nothing of Harry's apostasy. The letter went on to say that Harry would write as soon as he himself was able, and would probably be in London early next week. at any rate before the end of it. He was a little feverish, but there was no cause for alarm. Florence, of course, could only listen and turn pale. Now, at any rate, she must remain in London. Mrs. Burton's project might, after all, be feasible. But then, what if her husband should really be angry with her? This was a misfortune which never yet had come upon her. So, Florence has learned the truth of the situation. Harry has been detained down at Clavering, and Mrs. Clavering, Cecilia Burton, has a plan. She has something that she thinks might be a Hail Mary project for getting this all cleared up. She's the only person who still believes in it. Harry clearly doesn't, not unambiguously. Florence is willing to give way. And her own husband, Theodore, wants nothing, wants her to be an angel, but be an angel without hope. This can't happen. You must return your troth. You must return all his trinkets. This can't happen. But Cecilia Burton has a plan. So we'll see what that is when we resume. I don't know when that will be, but I will try to be prompt, and I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.